Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in this wonderful world of ours. We're here today with some super people. Of course, everybody knows Paul Alford from Advanced 7, writer for Love My Tool, a great friend and a super professional. And then we have someone with Apposite Technologies, which I have always said Apposite. I apologize. And Joe Zeto. I'm doing Joe. I don't know, Joe, how long I've known you? A long, long time.
Yeah, at least 15 years, maybe 20.
Yeah, it's been a while. But Joe is now with Apposite Technology, and Apposite is a WAN emulation company, and they're really. I say this early on that I just don't understand why people don't test before deploy. That goes back to the old plug and pray, technology scenario, which is not good. And we're going to talk today about, over 90% of deployed applications fail immediately, or they're hackable immediately. And that's because no one tests them. They don't test the load, they don't test the WAN. And so, Joe, that's what we're going to talk about today. And Paul, I turn this over to you as a super guru, and I'm going to sit back and just be my usual pain in the butt.
Okay, thanks for that, Tim. Yeah, I have to confess that through the delivery of a few projects at Advanced 7, we have used Apposite Technology WAN emulation. So this is good to talk to Joe and get a first-hand account. But before we start, Joe, give us a bit about the company and the background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm fairly new to the company, been here about 4 months, but I've known of the company for a long time. Really great guys who founded it. Been in business over 10 years, over 2,500 customers worldwide, which is, a pretty big number for a test and measurement company. Really sold into all facets of the industry, from a lot of government industry, working with the satellite providers, pretty much all, a lot of the major enterprises across all different verticals are customers of Apposite, from retailers to banking to, anybody that's running an application over the wide area. Certainly the vendors as well, the Ciscos of the world are great customers, and the service providers. So, those are kind of the people that we sell to. And again, as Paul said, what we do is, it's called network emulation. So essentially, we bring in a very small box, we bring the wide area network to your lab. And so you can prove out at all stages, from your development to your QA to your system tests. And we know with DevOps, those are merging together, and it's continuous testing. But what Apposite brings in with an appliance brings the wide area and the conditions of the wide area network into the lab. And as you said, Tim, to prove out applications, that's fundamentally what Apposite is about, is making sure when people launch applications of all different varieties, that they're rock solid, and that they're ultimately their internal customers and their external customers will be very happy with what the company's delivering.
So tell us about the characteristics of a WAN that you can emulate. I mean, obviously there's packet loss and there's bandwidth constraint, but what's the range of the metrics that you are able to use?
Yeah, and you think about, let's talk about why you'd kind of want to do this. There's the different applications. So there's streaming services, companies that are doing, we all know Netflix and Hulu and Disney and a whole range. So those applications run over the wide area network. They might connect to using Wi-Fi to connect in their home, and that can be very unpredictable and can vary based on conditions. So we know that varies. They could also be connecting over cellular. Then there's, industries like IoT, and, there's a whole bunch of industries that are merging that'll use applications over the wide area network with different devices, different network characteristics. And so that's what we do, is we can emulate latency to kind of emulate distance. So you can think of, going across country, from you have a branch office in LA, you have a branch office in New York, you need to connect them, for disaster recovery, for sharing of information, just latent distance increases latency. So there's latency, but then there could also be things like packets can get out of order, like maybe that's more prevalent in Wi-Fi networks. You could, depending on the type of network you're running over, you could have drop packets, you could have corrupt packets. So it's kind of pretty much all the impairments that you would see on a wide area network, and then being able to kind of scale them up and scale them down, of creating a good network, what looks like a good network with maybe it's fairly close. It's a regional connection, branch office connection that has a fast pipe, low latency. So it's things like bandwidth, how much bandwidth you're going to get from, are you going to get, a 10 megabits link, or are you going to have a 100 gigabit link? So simulating bandwidth, simulating the latency, simulating loss, corruption, reordering, and stuff like that.
Yeah. I have my rules about WAN. Okay. Everything eventually goes over WAN. Okay. Yeah. Can't get away from that. No one knows what your physical WAN configuration, either logically or physically, is. Okay. It's a mystery. It's FM. That stands for frickin' magic. 90% of applications that go over WAN fail, and that's generous. I think that Gartner just recently said it's 0.1% are successful. So that means 99.9% fail. You need to test not just for your application, but to validate that you're getting the services that you need. Okay, you got to have that ability. And you mentioned it, Joe. IoT is killing us. The amount of internet traffic from IoT is huge, and it's eating up bandwidth, and people don't even know it's on their network. So with Apposite, you can really define your interconnectability with the world, because your LAN is isolated. The WAN the WAN is what connects you to the world. And I've never understood why people don't test, but I'm old. Okay.
No, absolutely. And so IoT is a great use case for why you need to do network emulation. It's here today, but it's going to be, you fast forward about 4 years, and there's going to be 25, 30 billion devices connected, and and these are all different applications, and some of them are a lot more sensitive to latency and bad networks than others. Some are some healthcare apps and things like that. And typically what you'll see is devices of all varieties out there. They'll connect to a gateway type device, and then they'll go into an application server. And so where we can sit behind the gateway and in between the gateway and the application server, and then emulate different latency. And you don't know what the end device is on. Is it on a Wi-Fi network? And we all know Wi-Fi, depending on the the environmental characteristics, the performance can be great, and then it can be bad one moment. Is the application, the end application device, is it going over a cellular? Is it going over an LTE network that's lightning fast? Is it going over a 3G network that's kind of on the fringe of a cell and having bad performance? So you need to tune the application, from, everything's going to work great if your connection's great, your bandwidth's great, your latency's low. But we all know, okay, what happens if they're riding a train with a connected device, and you're moving, and your performance, and so it's going to break. And so you just want it to, you want it to be perform as well as can under, you need to understand the characteristics of how bad can the network be, and the application still performs. And then when it loses connectivity, or it's below that threshold, does it gracefully perform, let's say, and we've actually, we can get into it either now or later. We're actually working with a partner on IoT, that we got some good things coming on.
I was about 30 years ago, I was working at National Semiconductor, and I was working with some application people. I was a network guy at the time. And the application guy said to me, "I don't understand why my code stays up and runs all the time and your network keeps falling over." So I said, "Yeah, but your code's running in a computer down there in a £1 million computer room with air conditioning. My network stretches across to the Middle East, it's a bit different." So he did see the point eventually.
Yeah, that's a good way to.
So Dick Finch, if you're out there, I got you.
put it clearly.
Okay, so one thing I was going to ask you, Joe. Obviously, bandwidth is, bandwidth and the speed of links is going up incredibly. So what happens if you want to do some really heavy duty emulation, on 10 gig, or can you do that? Is that possible these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So Apposite started back in the day. We had speeds down to 100 megabits, and we still have those products. And then we got into certainly gigabit years ago. And we've been doing 10 gig for quite a while, a number of years, 5+ years as well. But as you said, these bigger pipes are coming, and especially in different areas. If you look at like migration, cloud migration, and moving storage systems to the cloud, we see a lot of use of 40 gig and 100 gig and those type of applications. And also in LTE and certainly in 5G networks, you see 100 gig links being put into Ethernet links being put into the networks to connect like the S gateway, the P gateway, the different components in LTE and 5G networks. So in the last 6 to 9 months, Apposite has developed these high-speed interfaces for network emulation. So we have 40 gig and we have 100 gig, and we're working closely with mostly the people that are buying those are the carriers and the manufacturers of the routing gear and the manufacturing of storage systems. And SD-WAN is also a use of these higher speed network interfaces of 40 gig and 100 gig. So absolutely. So our customers came to us in the last year and said, hey, we've got to have higher speed interfaces to do network emulation. And then and really the same user interface, the same emulation characteristics, the same simplicity of the system. It works, it's just an interface speed. So absolutely, it's coming.
Okay. I'm going to talk to you about IoT in a second, but I wanted to touch on cloud migration because it's an area that we're quite involved in at the moment. So obviously the thing is that particularly if you're doing a rehosting type migration where it's a lift and shift of an existing system, if you look at the strategies that are proposed by various people, and in particular AWS proposed a strategy which they call an agile strategy, which it is, and that is to move components or tiers one tier at a time. But of course, that means that there are periods of time when you're running in a hybrid mode, even if you weren't intending to run in a hybrid mode in your target system. So in a hybrid mode, we've got, some components on premise, we've got some components in the cloud, and we've got a nice big chunk of latency between the two. Is that an area that you see much demand, or is this just being ignored?
No, it's a big driver. It's a big trend in the industry of cloud migration, and it's a big driver for the use of our products. Absolutely, because for years everything was on-prem. Now applications and storage systems are moving to the cloud. And as you said, when it was local to an office and you had a LAN, it was lightning fast. Now you see things coming like cloud object storage. There's a number of vendors out there, and they do it for redundancy, for backup, for better, having the metadata outside the detached from the storage to be able to sort through storage systems faster and put them anywhere in the world. And you see people might put them regionally. They might say, hey, okay, I'm going to have they're going to be 100 miles apart and put them regionally, or they might put in the U.S. They might do, some companies might go, okay, I'm going to have West Coast, Central, and East Coast of where my big data centers of my object storage is going to sit. And then, like you said, it might be a mix. It certainly will be a mix of hybrid. Some will be on premise, some will be in the cloud. And so what you need to be able to do is these are all kind of like paths, and each path will have a different characteristic in terms of the bandwidth that you'll get, the cleanness, the whether you'll have packet loss or reordering or not of the network. And so you want to be able to test running the applications. And if I put the data in different, on-premise or different locations around the US or around the world, and they have different latency, at the end of the day, what's that going to mean to the user? And so there's so many, I mean, you read just a litany of cloud migrations fail.
We're dealing with one right now, actually, this week.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Because, I mean, why? Because they're not, they're just kind of testing locally and making a lot of assumptions, but they're not bringing, some people aren't bringing the essentially the network to the lab and proving it out. And we're working with, we have a partnership that's emerging that I can't say the name of the company, but they play in this space heavily of helping companies with cloud migration and helping benchmark the performance of storage systems and which storage vendors you should go with. But working with them because we can, us plus them, we essentially provide predictive analytics. You can play what if scenarios. Okay, what if I put this application in the cloud? What if I put that application? What if I put this application local? What if I, here's where I want to put the data centers for I'm going to put the storage systems, and you can see. Okay, so then it's not theoretical. You've actually kind of proved it out.
Do you have pre-configured profiles for different? I'm thinking of things like Azure ExpressRoute. I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with ExpressRoute to understand the service tiers or whatever. But do you have those pre-configured canned sort of profiles that you can just say, well, I'm going to have an ExpressRoute link from London to Dublin, and here are the characteristics, or is that something that the customer has to discover for themselves?
Yeah, so we've collected a ton of profile data of all kinds of different network types, from, like I said, from cellular networks, from Wi-Fi networks, from different distances. So we've got those kind of, and as customers ask for them, we do kind of, hey, it could be a satellite vendor, right? We work a ton with military, and latency is tremendous over satellite systems, and we've collected a lot of data of those type of networks. And so we provided kind of, depending on the industry that the customer is in, we kind of give them our, the configurations, the profiles that we've captured. We've actually, on the last dozen customers I've gone out and visited, they're all asking for this more and more. So we're actually looking at building it into a product instead of just, okay, here's a characteristics of a good cellular networks. Here's characteristics of a bad Wi-Fi network. So I think that's some value that we can offer. We also, another thing that customers want to be able to do is, profile like what they've got. A lot of times they've got a network, an application up and running, and we can go in and essentially monitor that network or profile that network, and you can capture over a period of time what's the characteristics, what this link that I have from New York to Honolulu to my branch office. You can see, okay, here's the latencies I'm getting, here's the loss, here's the different errors and how they happen, and you can see how it goes up and down over time. And we allow them to capture that, and then they can play those network conditions back.
I remember seeing that feature. That is a great feature, and I think your idea about profile repository type service, I think that would be tremendous.
Yeah. It's like I mean, like the last 3 or 4 particular customers I went out and visited, they're all, and they're all different. Like one was one of the industry leaders in audio visual systems, really high end for, the type of video service we're doing now, but they do it for educational classrooms, for high end presentations, at corporations. So they need rock solid video. But then I also worked with 2 kind of consumer type products that could sit in your home, for they're well-known brands, that I'm sure you probably have 1 or 2 of their products in your house, but their products are just connecting over Wi-Fi, and they're both of them asked, hey, can you give us profiles for what Wi-Fi networks look like?
Yeah, we did a study here with Comcast, which is a customer of yours, and originally they had borrowed the one that I had, and they were blown away by the ability to grab a I don't know what do you call it, a file or a picture of the network for a customer, and then emulate it using their WAN parameters, and it definitely confirmed that they were not providing the customer with the services guaranteed. And they were blown away by it. Actually, I had to fight to get my damn unit out of there because, but they did eventually buy from you. So one thing also I think is really good. I don't know how long it's been out, but recently I had a friend of mine that does a lot of VMware testing, and you got a NetOpsy for VM, right?
Yeah.
That is apparently very cool because he was blown away by its capability.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So those are that's the other big thing besides that's we've really moved forward with, in addition to the high speed links. The complete opposite is people want to essentially prototype all this stuff in a virtualized environment. So they want to virtualize, whatever network they're doing, meaning they'll create their applications that their clients that are going to connect to applications and ability to emulate that. Then they'll have their applications on a server that's virtualized in a in a VMware type of environment. And so what we can do now, and the idea is you don't have to have all these physical boxes out there. You don't have to have physical servers. You don't have to have physical network components. And they want to just, for speed, test in a completely virtualized environment. And so in the last 2 months, we've introduced a virtualized version of our product that is essentially a 1 gig network emulator. And instead of using our physical appliance, it can actually be a VM, and it could be spun up and spun down and moved around, anywhere in your virtualized environment. So that's something we've just announced in the last 2 months, and I'd say we've had in about 6 weeks we've had 50 requests for evaluations of it. So
and the nice thing is it actually emulates the jitter, because today all of our real-time protocols are so sensitive to jitter. Okay. I mean, it can mean the difference between a MOS score of 0.1 or 4. And that was the cool thing. They were actually trying to run a lot of real-time applications over it, and they did not know how bad the jitter was. And it was horrible. It was terrible. And they couldn't, neither customer nor the vendor could figure out what the problem was. Once they got it running, I don't know if it was a demo or not, but they got it running and they loved it. So, and I want to mention one thing. Emulation is becoming more and more important. SharkFest this year at the Computer Museum, Betty Du Bois, who's a well-known instructor, actually, we got Mike Pinocchi to send Betty an emulator that she used during the classes. So to really put a real-world spin on what you're looking at in your network.
Oh, that's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So we were going to come on to IoT. So tell us what the activity is in the IoT space then, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a little bit of a preview. We're going to actually make that I'm going to kind of tip you guys off today, because we haven't even made the formal announcement, but it's right around the corner. It's like about a week or so ago, but I'm giving you guys the scoop. But we're working with one of the leading companies in the world that does load performance testing of applications, and they're really grown in the last couple of years. This company in France called Neotis, and they've got just a litany of customers around the world, and they're really becoming world leaders in this load performance testing area. So we've formed a partnership with these guys, and we're in the process, and we're almost complete with it, of kind of integrating the products together, where their product is called NeoLoad, and they'll have the ability to, in their user interface, control our emulation capabilities and set up the emulation capabilities right from the user interface, and also see the results of the emulation of how much delays been injected. So what these guys do is they emulate clients, and up to millions of clients, and doing things that clients do, of surfing the web in very hot high stack things of pushing buttons to really test out. Then they're testing out the performance of a scale and performance and functionality of applications. So where it comes into play for, so it can work for that kind of use case of just like let's say you want to emulate thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that are using their cell phones to access applications that are sitting up in the cloud somewhere. Then we can emulate. We're in the middle emulating the different network connections of cellular and Wi-Fi that you might connect over. But where it comes into play for IoT is they're emulating all the connected devices, and they could be devices will typically connect to a gateway. Then the gateway goes into kind of translates the data that then goes into application that's sitting somewhere in the cloud. So Neoload and Neotis can emulate essentially the gateway and all the clients behind it. And we emulate the network that will sit behind a gateway and different paths. So it could be, a great LTE connection that's super close to a cell tower, lightning fast, low latency. It could be a 3G network that you're on a train and your performance going up and down, and any other type of network. So there's going to be, as I said, 20 to 30 billion connected devices in the next 4 years. And so we're helping these large organizations that are rolling out these IoT frameworks, to make sure that they can test it in the lab, to make sure they're scale up to at the end of the day, the applications meet the expectations of their customers down the line. So I just gave you guys a little scoop of what's going on. So
we won't tell anybody, Joe, for a while. We'll keep it secret.
Okay.
Paul, you still there? Your mic's going, Paul.
Okay.
This is too high tech.
It is. Let me try something.
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you now.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Paul. Now we can hear you. Well, while Paul is doing a technical diagnostic test on his network, we're gonna jump to one thing. You got to start thinking if about emulation, because there is no pure network. Okay, you got to understand how your application is going to work, not only within your network, within your server base, within your Dynamics SD-WAN virtual net technology, but how it's going to work in the real world.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And emulation is absolutely incredible.
Yep.
So, and it's a necessity. And I've used the I can't say it, Neotis product before. Yeah. And their Neoload product is very cool. Matter of fact, quite a few people use it. A lot of the big vendors that sell tools use it. So, and one last thing, I'm going to say why Paul gets his mic. Paul, are you having any success? Nope. We can't hear you. Get a hammer. Still can't hear you, Paul.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh,
don't touch anything.
Yeah, I'm back on my microphone on my laptop, so it might be a bit dodgy, but we'll go with it.
That's all right. Hey, you're in UK, Joe's in California, and I'm in Georgia. What can you expect, right?
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Go ahead. I say something and you went away, so go ahead.
Yeah. I haven't really got much more to say. The only closing remark I was going to make on IoT is obviously a big issue, I guess, is going to be reliability over really poor networks, and particularly the ability for the application to recover from connection failure and things like that. And I think the ability to be able to simulate poor networks is tremendous. I know, we've had dealings with oil companies that are trying to run systems from Sakhalin Island back to the UK, and that was tortuous. And testing systems using WAN emulation prior to actually shipping the kit would have probably been a really good move. But
Well, remember also remember all of the SCADA systems are moving to IoT versions.
Yeah.
And that means billions of components are going to enter the internet from the IoT domain. Now, I don't know if we're going to stack them like RTUs and we're going to do, whatever, but almost all of our industrial control systems within the next 5 years will be on the network, plus all the house security, business security, and that. So it's going to be very interesting, Joe.
Yeah.
I hope I live long enough.
You've been saying that to me for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I know, but
I quoted you the other day.
Pardon me?
I quoted you the other day. You said to me on a Hangouts session the other day that you said, I've been shot 4 times, stabbed twice, and slashed across the chest once and run down by a car. If I had known what I was going to live to this age, I would have been more careful. That's right. What you said to me, wasn't it?
I would have hung around mean people, Well, listen, I do want to mention one thing, Joe. First off, gosh, it was wonderful having you on Love My Tool. We look forward, Paul and I look forward to doing it again. And when you start announcing stuff, gee, we'd love to hear more. We'd like to have, but don't worry, we won't tell any secrets that you gave out today. Okay, we won't let that leak.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll do our very best to. We're like the Pentagon, and never mind, we'll go. One thing
things like that.
Yeah, I'm just, that's me. One thing I do want to mention is we're going to have SharkFest Europe, October 29th through November 2nd. And it's going to be in an absolute horrible place. Vienna. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, Joe, are you going?
Sign me up.
Well, we may get some of your equipment there. Trust me.
I was going, but actually my colleague's going in my place because my son in Australia is expecting his second child. And we're going to fly out to see them. So,
and your grandchild, and how many does that make, Paul?
That'll be number 5 actually. But then I've got 4 kids. So,
and Paul's only 29. That's what he tells me at least.
I wish. Okay, before we get on to too many personal points, I think we should close it out there. So, thanks very much, Joe. That was a great session, and as always, good fun, Tim. So we'll close the show now. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
And I see we do have some viewers, so that's good.
Everybody be safe and God bless all. Be good.
Okay.